I'm recording. Hi everybody, I'm here with Josh, Denny. We're going to have a little chat about, well, hopefully bodies and rainbow bodies. And I wanted to start with a quick quote from All and Everything, because we're going to talk about creating your higher body. And Gurdjieff says, your nose and the organs connected with it are so adapted that you may take in and transform in yourself those world substances by which there are coated in the free brain beings similar to yourself, both higher being bodies, on one of which rests the hope of our common, all-embracing creator for help in his needs. So we need to create a body to help his endlessness.
Yeah. I mean, like you say, in his different writings, Gurdjieff talks about, the man has multiple bodies, and he gives them different names, sometimes in the different places where he talks about them. In Beelzebub's Tales, he says we've got three bodies, or potentially. We have our physical body and what he calls a Kesdjan body, which I think he also says is what the beings of planet Earth tend to call the astral body. And then we also have the third body, or second higher being body, which he calls like the soul, higher being body of the soul. And he tends to speak of them being developed like kind of sequentially. So he says that you have to kind of develop the second body then, or the astral body has to crystallize, or be coated to a certain degree before the soul, or the third, the second higher being body can be developed. So there's a kind of like a sequential process there. And he talks about, in Beelzebub's Tales, I think he says that three-brained beings, like they have to have a Kesdjan body as well as a physical body to be classed as a being. Or like let's say then like a proper three-brained being, like our kind of the form of our sort of Kesdjan body differentiates us from, say, animals. You could say that animals do have like kind of say an astral body, but obviously it's of a different nature to like ours as humans, because we're kind of three-brained beings, and we're classed as conscious beings. We have this extra third brain that animals don't have, which gives us extra potentials. So he says that we have to develop that second body then during life, in order to, you could say, complete our own like human development. Like he says, that development of the second body is kind of supposed to be natural to us, like should kind of occur naturally through the course of our life, much like physical maturation. Like we go through puberty and stuff like that. We don't have to, you don't have to do anything to kind of like initiate that process or make it carry on. It just happens organically, doesn't it? Naturally. So he kind of says, like back in the past, that was kind of the way it was, that people just sort of lived their, natural day-to-day life, but that process would be going on, you could say, in the background almost, not necessarily that they had to do anything specifically to develop it. But he also said that the ancient traditions also had lots of customs and practices that were naturally geared towards developing it, like, various kinds of prayer or different kinds of rituals or communal, like, celebrations and things like that, festivals. So he kind of says that, it would maybe through a balanced, quote unquote, normal life, it would kind of develop of itself in a way. You wouldn't have to make like a specific, attempt to coat this body, or it wouldn't really be an issue. It would just kind of, develop naturally. But of course, he says that doesn't really happen with us anymore because of various causes, like this organ kunda buffer that was put into us in the past that slowed down our evolution and was taken out of us, but the effects of it still last. So that apparently interferes with our natural development, stops that kind of happening. And also he says some of the social conditions and the ideas, that we've sort of developed ourselves hinder that natural process. So we don't do things that would foster its growth, and we do things on the opposite end that can, kind of stifle its growth or corrupt its growth. Like he does say that it's possible to develop a second body wrongly. What he talks about, wrong crystallization. So again, he speaks of that process as being like developing the second body as being kind of hazardous, or that there's lots of different possibilities or potentials involved. It's not just like a set, you could say, like guaranteed or simple process that's the same for everyone. Like people could coat their Kesdjan bodies in different ways, from right crystallization to wrong crystallization. And also, I think he kind of implies that there is a kind of a natural variation between the question bodies of different people. Like, you know, in the same way that, well, we have different physical bodies and different psyches. So you could say that a question body would have some kind of individuality to it. You know, they're not all just going to be like clones of, you know, of each other as second bodies.
God for that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think they kind of say that there's more sort of individuality possible in the higher bodies. You know, you could say that there's like more uniqueness, you know, or more true sort of individuality or true variation, you know, like the higher the body. And I suppose like he associates real I, which you could say is real individuality, with the second highest body, the soul. So again, that's like, you know, each soul is supposed to be kind of like unique in a way, you know, so true seed of individuality. And like you mentioned it there, that he says that the second body particularly is developed by feeding on developing or transforming the second being food, which he says is air. You know, he says that there's these higher materials or higher, finer substances of the astral world or the Keshin world, you know, the material of that world and that body. We do take in some of that material through our physical breath, you know. And I think he also mentions the pores of the skin in Beelzebub. So again, the skin does
breathing, isn't it?
Yeah. So I mean, the skin does breathe a bit, doesn't it? You know, like through the pores and stuff. So he says that, yeah, we get it from sort of the air, and he kind of classes the air there as of the realm of the planets. Like he says, we receive some material sort of from the planetary world, the planetary environment, and that material is of the astral, you know, the astral world, the Keshin world. So that goes towards developing our body. And I think he also says some of the material that develops the Keshin body actually comes from the sun as well. So it's mostly planetary material of the astral world, obviously, that develops the astral body. But he also says it does also develop through some of the material of the world above that, which we could say is the world of the, you know, the soul. So again, it just implies that they're kind of almost like, you could say, nestled within each other. You know, like if I'm working towards developing my Keshin body, then you could say naturally, hopefully, that will also, you could say, liberate some material of the third body. You know, like I was saying before, they say that if you develop your second body to a certain extent, then yeah, that begins the kind of the process of development of the third body. I mean, you could, in a simple way, you could picture it like Russian dolls or something. Yeah. You know, if the second body is the second Russian doll, if that gets a certain amount of solidity, then material can start to collect in there, and then the little next smaller Russian doll could form within the second body or around it, whichever way you want to put that. So, like we mentioned, the rainbow body. So again, there could be confusions as to which body that we were talking about. What is actually referred to or meant by the rainbow body, like whether it could be the Keshin body or like this body of the soul. Lots of people, again, in tradition often talk about different kinds of manifestation, like astral projection or things like that. You know, they might talk of being at a holy shrine or something, and maybe a shrine to a particular saint, and then somebody like sees a vision, like in a kind of an ethereal form of the saint manifest, you know. So lots of times those kind of events or manifestations are often linked with the astral body, the second body, because that body then, or that realm, is kind of tied to what Gurdjieff calls the essence then in the work. And obviously the essence there kind of refers to like the isness of something, or you could say the quality of something. You know, like obviously an individual human is part of the collective human essence. And obviously our human essence is different from a plant essence then. And obviously our essence expresses in our physical form, you know, like obviously our physical body is a human body. So it's an expression of the human essence. So it's kind of an expression of the essence in manifest form. But we also have the essence itself, kind of, you could say, in its unmanifest form, or sort of non-physical expression. So you could say that the second body is kind of the natural body of the essence, you know. Again, he kind of says that the essence is the part of us that we're born with. You know, again, it's like a seed of our soul, then our individuality or spirit, and that's what we kind of, you know, incarnate with. And again, should that receive the stimulus and the influences that are natural to it, then that essence will grow. And you could say that the kind of matured essence, like an essence that goes through sort of puberty, it would be like the full development of its, you know, its own faculties, which you could link with the Keston body. And being linked with qualities, you like you could say that colors are kind of linked with that realm of qualities and the astral realm as well. So like, you know, Gurdjieff does the meditation with the colors and stuff. And there are also other traditions that use like meditating on different colors for different things, or like the chakras again, like sort of behind the physical body. Again, you could say in the astral body or in the subtle material that our astral body would be made of, there are these chakras or these kind of energetic centers. And supposedly, again, you can kind of tune into them, like put your attention to those chakras or those centers. And if, you know, if your mind is in the right condition or the right state, you can see pictures, like visual images will come to you. And they could be of the chakras themselves, which are often described as kind of like vortexes almost, you know, like an energy vortex that spins. And they're also linked with different colors, you know. So you can do meditations that way and get visualizations in your mind's eye of the kind of subtle system. And again, with the astral body, people say that it can manifest, like if someone's developed it, then you can kind of manifest it physically. So you could manifest it in a kind of a physical sort of appearance to someone. Like again, like with the example with the saint, you know, you could go to a shrine and you see a kind of semi-physicalized, you know, form of the saint. And that might be, again, that might manifest in like an actual sort of physical, you know, normal looking person, or it could manifest in like, you know, like different kinds of colors or some kind of energetic form. You wouldn't necessarily have to look like a strict physical, you know, physical body. So I'm just saying that there's a lot of those manifestations that people might link with the rainbow body could be at the Keston level. Like someone could have an experience of something manifesting like that, seeing a kind of astral body or seeing some kind of colors, and they might mistake it possibly with the soul body. So I'm just saying that there could be confusion in what they mean, you know, what they're actually referring to in tradition by the rainbow body. Because again, the Keston body, if it's there to be developed, can separate from, you know, the physical body. And so that's how people can do like astral projection and things. And again, depending on how much it's been developed or what maybe particular talents that, you know, the particular person has, they might be able to use that Keston body in different ways. And one of those, you know, uses could be a physical, you know, like a physical
or appearance.
Yeah. So that could be one set of realm of experiences that could be taken for the rainbow body, or could be that's what people could be talking about it. Or they could be talking about, you know, using it to refer to the soul body, the higher body, you know, which in Gurdjieff's tradition, that would be the true sort of the real immortal body. You know, he kind of says that relatively, the Keston body is, you could say, immortal compared to the physical body, in the sense that it kind of lives in another dimension and is not kind of subject to the normal kind of physical cause and effect. But he does say, in the long run, it's still a kind of limited body, you know. It could still be subject to the forces of, say, dissolution. But they wouldn't be, obviously, it's not kind of subject to the physical forces, it would be subject to the own forces in the astral realm, you know.
Yeah, so it's still subject to time, isn't it?
Yeah, so he says that the only true sort of, you could say then, immortal, you know, body would be the soul body. But again, in the kind of the way that Gurdjieff speaks of that sort of third body, he kind of suggests that it's beyond, that it's kind of beyond the realm of form, you know, like it doesn't have any kind of manifest appearance, whether to the physical eyes or to the kind of, could say, astral eyes, the inner, you know, the inner eye, that it's kind of beyond the realm of form. But because it's the highest body, they say that's the body that can, again, if it's been developed, that's the true seat of, like, you could say, real will and creativity. So if that body was formed, that's the one that could potentially act on matter. You see what I mean? That theoretically, that's the body that like, again, if you were talking about multiple lives, that would be the body that could, like, incarnate in a physical body, or could shape matter, you know, to create a vehicle. Because again, that third body is linked to the will and the soul and the highest kind of sort of creative capacity that we can access to, like true creativity. So it'd have to be that level that could really be you could say immortal, or that can really work on matter. Because again, with the rainbow body tradition, there's the idea that some of the monks die and their physical body disappears. So again, you'd probably have to be talking at that level, like this level of the soul, that would be able to do that would be able to have that sort of degree of control over physical matter. Like the Kesdin body is not really spoken about as having that same sort of degree of ability to control matter. Like they do talk of it as having some extra capacities, like again, so you can do astral travel and stuff, and it does have a certain amount of extra control over the physical body. Like they do say that if that side of you is developed, then you can gain access to certain extra physical capacities. Like, so we see like supermen yogis who can maybe hold their breath and do different things like that, or super strength. So the Kesdin body can control or gain access to greater physical capacities than normal, but it's not spoken of as like having this complete ability to control or create and destroy physical matter, So I'm just saying there can be confusions then, like if we talk about these monks and different manifestations that can happen around their death, there could be confusion whether they could be seeing like some kind of separation or manifestation of the Kesdin body at the moment of death. Like, if people maybe have their subtle senses more developed, they might see that. Or if somebody's Kesdin body is particularly, you could say strong or developed to a high degree, then that might make an more obvious manifestation at the time of death. So it could be the second body that a lot of those people are talking about, in those kind of experiences of like seeing a color or a rainbow body at the moment of death. But as to the actual disappearing of the physical body, if that's what people were talking about, I'd suggest that that would have to be beyond the level of the astral body, and would probably indicate like what they would say a real soul, someone who liberated the real I and the creative, the full creative power that's in that.
Well, I'm going to jump in here because C.S. Knott talks about when Araj died. Now, I can't remember if C.S. Knott knew Araj had died or not, because obviously in them days we didn't have the fast technology that tells everyone what's going on. But that night, Araj's head appeared to Knott, and it was all rainbow colours flowing from it. So Knott was convinced that Araj had fully created his Kesdin body.
Yeah.
I need to read that passage properly again, just in case I've got that bit wrong. But I find it interesting that the rainbow body is used in so many religions. And I think that maybe I'd like to think that the soul, the full big soul body that you was talking about, the one that's the top of them all, would be golden in color, or sun, especially since Gurdjieff talks about becoming a solar being. Yeah. It's something I often debate with myself and with other people about this, which one is which, like what you're saying. Nobody is too sure, but there is a concern. I've had people get in touch with me saying, I'm concerned I'm crystallizing wrongly, but I'm sure crystallization is kind of like a moral impulse as well. So if you had the right moral intentions, you should be crystallizing okay.
I mean, like he says that again, if we were fairly normal, whatever we mean by normal, if we're fairly normal, then that process should occur over the course of life and should be rightly crystallized. But like you said, it uses the example, I think in Search of the Miraculous, I think he uses the example of like a soldier having to stand like really still, like maybe he's on a sentry duty, like, and maybe there are flies buzzing around him and it's really hot, and he doesn't allow himself to to move or be bothered by that. So he says through that kind of experience, that kind of intense sort of overcoming of the physical nature, like the suffering and the resistances of the physical body, through that kind of intensive work, he says the Kesdin body can be crystallized, and can be crystallized quite quickly. Like, so some people could do intense practices like that to coat the Kesdin body and to coat it very quickly. But again, he says that there can be problems there because it's a kind of an artificial sort of means of development.
He hasn't got the training behind it of what it is he's actually developing.
Yes,
and a soldier.
Well, and it's just like you could be just taught some even like maybe some breathing meditation. particularly, you know, like pranayama or something, you could be taught some technique that you could use. And because of the nature of that technique being quite intense, you know, you could crystallize quicker, you know, like crystallize the Keshan body quicker. But because you're using that process to crystallize it, you could say that there can be consequences like that. Like, I mean, like imagine with like putting things in a kiln, you know, like pottery, they have to be fired, don't they, at certain temperature and over a certain period of time to fuse properly, so they don't like crack and stuff like that. You know, if it's fired too quickly, it could be weak, or there could be like cracks could develop in it. So again, you could look at the crystallization process that way. People could crystallize it really quickly or by different means, but depending on the means that you use, that can have effects on, you know, on the Keshan body. So he tends to warn against, like in generally warned against breathing exercises where you alter, like, you know, violent ones where you significantly alter the breath. For that reason, he says, because they can be damaging to the physical body. You could damage your physical body, and also they might produce distorted results in the, you know, in the astral body. So that's why I was kind of saying it's a sort of you know, a balancing process in the way, because it's probably likely that you're going to have to use some kind of artificial techniques. Like, I mean, even just basic meditation, when you're not like altering your breath or anything, you could say that's artificial. It's not just part of your natural life. You know, you're not just going about your business. You know, you're sitting down and doing some kind of meditation. So you could say that any kind of work like that, where you're using some kind of technique that you're applying to yourself, is artificial. You know, it's not just like organic. You know, I think in Beelzebub he talks about the difference between artificial Jhaklam and organic Jhaklam. And I think he mentions it in Search and Macros in terms of self-remembrance, that there can be artificial means to self-remember and organic means. And obviously, like, the organic and the natural means are the most effective, you know, in terms of producing correct crystallization. But that natural means could possibly take a longer period of time. So that's why I'm saying that ideally, if a person was living a balanced life, whatever that would imply, then that process would happen naturally, and it would happen at a pace that was suitable to the individual. You know, for some people, it might be natural for them to develop a Keshan body very quickly. For others, it might be, you know, meant to take longer for them, you know, depending on their sort of fate, then you could say, or the essence, you know, the differences. So I'm just saying that, yeah, maybe a balanced life, there would be maybe some use of, you know, some artificial techniques, some kind of meditation and stuff, but it's probably unlikely that it would be exaggerated techniques, like that are very, you know, you could say violent, and ones that significantly alter the breath and things like that. So I'm just saying that, yeah, he says that the Keshan body can develop through different means, and particularly, like he says, through means that involve controlling, you could say, your reactions to the physical body, you know. Like he talks about, like, the body being a kind of denying force, you know, in terms of that's the role it plays in the three forces to crystallize our higher bodies. So an affirming force needs to oppose, you could say, the denying force of the physical body. And through that kind of friction, that's what can generate the Keshan body. But you could still say that even in your general life, just going against some of our automatic habits, you know, like maybe I'm quick to temper, impatient, you know. Even working at that level, just with those sort of habits, you are still resisting, you could say, the automatic tendencies of the body, you know, or your like normal psyche, and that is a way to crystallize, you see. So though it might not look like it, that is, you could still say, work on your astral body. It's work to crystallize something that's kind of independent of our sort of habitual reactive and physical nature. But yeah, I was going to say,
being aware of what you're doing, isn't it? When you're doing it, because I think, well, like you were saying with the soldier, if you're not doing it with an awareness, then you're not creating it properly. Like you were saying about the Jhaklam, I was just looking it up, because that's the peculiarity proper to the omnipresent Okhidanok. Immediately on entering as a whole into any cosmic unit, there immediately occurs in it what is called Jhaklam. That is to say, it is dispersed into the three fundamental sources from which it obtained its prime arising. So if we're not, if they're not going into the right places, then they're not going to create them bodies, are they? Correctly.
Yeah. Like again, he says, yeah. Like depending on how those forces or those, you know, different materials or energies that are coming into us, depending on how they're transformed, you know, yeah, they'll have different results. And like with the astral body, again, in different traditions, it's said, isn't it, that people who develop that, they gain certain, you could say, certain extra capacities, or that body has certain extra capacities. And again, that's often linked with different kinds of astral projection. Like, isn't it? It says a saint who develops his Christian body can, you know, appear to people on the other side of the world and manifest in that sort of body. It can manifest in a way that can be perceivable. But I think it's rare in those kind of accounts that you ever get people touching it with a form of solidity. Mm-hmm. You know, it's usually just a kind of an apparition. So that, again, that's another thing that sort of distinguishes the account with Christ. You know, that when he appeared to the apostles, you know, after his death, like Thomas, doesn't he? He goes up and touches
him. Yeah, touches the wound where the
lance
went.
Yeah, so it has the physical manifestation. So again, that kind of markedly separates it from just the realm of what we're told about as like apparitions or astral manifestations, and like something that could actually physically create, or a physical body to manifest. Again, you'd have to think of the soul being able to like shape the elements, almost create a physical body to appear in, you know, to do that. So again, that's a markedly higher level than just what we could say the astral body, you know.
But that's because Christ is, thankfully, he's unique, but he's also, I'm not sure if he's man number 6 or number 7. I'd like to think he's number 7, but he's I think high out.
Yeah, I think in Search for Miraculous, he says, well, someone like a Christ will be man number 8. So again, he distinguishes, like what we could say the prophets of the great religions. He separates them from normal human beings. Like, again, he says a normal human being can only become a man number 7. That's the height of development that a normal human can achieve. So he kind of suggests that, yeah, like someone like a Christ, they're not strictly like, you could say human. You know, they're beyond the stage that the average man can develop, you know. So again, that kind of separates, like nowadays, a lot of people look at Christ and some of those figures, like the prophets, and just think of them as just highly developed human beings, or just a man who attained man number 7. But again, like with Gurdjieff, he does like the 4 prophets exercise and stuff like that.
Yeah.
He kind of says that these beings are from like above. You know, he talks about in Beelzebub incarnations from above. So again, suggests a different level of being to that just of the average man. You know, like they represent some kind of higher, you could say, level of being or higher action than just a fully developed man. But of course, they also, you could say, represent the fully developed man to us, because it's supposed to serve as, you know, you could say, an inspiration. So again, yeah, there could be differences that what would be possible for a Christ or a man number 8 in terms of being able to do something like that, and a normal human. But again, they do say that the soul and the highest body would be capable of stuff like that, because it's got that, it's supposed to have at the level of real creativity, you know, the true creative force, you know, can manifest through it, the same creative force of God, you know.
Wow. So I'm glad you clarified that, because as people know, the video I've done before this with General Lee, I've got it wrong then, because I've said in there that Christ was man number 7, but you've explained that so much better and makes so much sense. So apologise to people who said I did it wrong before, but this is why I do these shows. Got to learn. Yeah. We've all got to teach each other.
That's how I'm sure that's how he mentions it in like in Search for Miraculous. He says, oh, well, yeah, we'd have to call Christ something like a man number 7 then. You know?
No, you're right. He does, because now you've said all that. It's like, no, that's what he said. But, you know, sometimes it's difficult to retain all the information.
Yeah. But again, that doesn't necessarily mean that, like, to be able to manifest a physical body is beyond man number 7. But it's just saying that, yeah, in the case of a Christ, it could represent a difference in potential. But yeah, I would still say that it's quite, you could say really that's what's happening now anyway. You could say that your soul, that's what's providing you, is manifesting material, you know, materializing your physical body now all the time, you know. But it's just that happening, you could say, unconsciously, or, you know, sort of automatically. Like we haven't liberated, you could say, our own sort of subjective consciousness at that level, you know, so that we could consciously use those capacities. But you could say we're kind of unconsciously using them all the time. You know, I take it for granted that when I wake up in the morning, I'm waking up into the into the physical world that I think exists independently of me. But in the traditions, they say, no, really, all of that's happening inside your own consciousness anyway. So your consciousness is manifesting when you wake up in the morning. You're manifesting the whole world, or at least then you could say
my
your
consciousness struggles with that concept. I used to read a lot of not Dorian Valentine, I've forgotten which one, who I mean now, Dolores Cannon. She talks about all that, and that when I've left a room, all them people have disappeared because they're not in my conscious anymore. I find that I just can't comprehend it.
Yeah, obviously it's a tricky one. Even if we didn't say that the whole world is kind of within us, you could still say that the fact that that you seem to be occupying a physical body, what's maintaining that, they could say essentially, is really your soul. That's the force that enables your physical body to persist, essentially. Of course, there are like physical forces that work to keep it going, keep it alive, but they say essentially the primal force comes, you could say, then from your soul or from your will, that again you kind of get from God. So we have a means to utilize the creative force of God, and you could say that's what we utilize all the time. Like, again, essentially that's what's holding your experience together now. It's not all held together by physical matter. There is a force that's what holds all the physical matter together. You could say your soul or your I, that's what provides you with the physical body, and then the Keston body. So that part of it, you could say, is shaping matter, physical matter and subtle matter all the time. But again, the process of development will be that we could kind of consciously realize that and manifest or actualize, the full potential of that creative force that operates through us. So we could potentially create a physical body to manifest in, and dissolve it, if that side of us is developed. But yeah, it's just a funny thing to think that we're kind of doing that already. The fact that we seem to be persisting in our experience, has a continuity to it. You could say that's only achieved by the force or the will of your soul. That's what holds it all, kind of holds it all together. And that's also what you could say differentiates the soul level from the Keston level. You could say that kind of the Keston world is kind of like the world of consciousness. So it's still an experiential world, and there is a content to it, But for the soul, then that would be beyond the manifest realm and beyond states of experience. You could say that essentially it's even your will. Your will is greater than your consciousness, because your will is what holds, maintains your consciousness and all your experiences within consciousness or different states of consciousness. Something maintains it all and gives it a sense of coherence. Like, again, I seem to be the same person, throughout all my experiences, and somehow I'm able to remember myself. That I don't seem to have a problem waking up every morning forgetting who I am. So you could say that essentially comes from your will. The will is the only thing that can really have that sort of continuity, can maintain.
In the will is one of the most important things. I know that sounds like we've just got a natural will, but to make the bodies, we need to really work with our will, like effort.
I mean, that's one way. Like, he talks about strengthening the will, like through all our different kind of exercises and things like that. And again, you've got to look at it as a process of separation, like through those kind of exercises and stuff, like using my will, I can get a chance maybe to learn about it and realize, the nature of that will through using it. I can learn about it, and through learning about it, I maybe realize that it's, realize that it's my kind of higher nature, that it's separate from all my experiences or my consciousness. It's the kind of the primal source of that, or what creates it and maintains it, So again, the effort and stuff like that it could be one way of realizing it. But again, you would say that the will itself is still kind of beyond the level of effort or subjective effort. Do you see what I mean? Like, any effort that we can make is already happening at a level, you could say, lower than the will, because it's happened to the psychological self. Like, I have the sense that I'm making an effort in this or that direction, So you could say that those efforts utilize our primary power of will, but in a sense, we're always exercising the will, whether I'm like doing something really hard or just sitting here because my will my
Your
will's
will's working.
it's keeping it in yeah, I can't, you know, like they say, it's the will that says I, and I'm saying I every moment. I have a sense of I am, you know, and you could say that the will is the sort of source of that I am. But again, it's in itself, it's not like a conscious thing that's saying I am, you know what I mean? Like what we take to be ourselves, you know, beyond
We
the
have
kind
to do that in our exercises. My will's actually saying to me, look at the time, because this is going to run out soon.
yeah.
So I'm going to just say, tell us where your blog post is for people to still check you out on your blog.
Yeah, it's just on the WordPress site. If you type in Gurdjieff and Beelzebub, that should take you to the page. The actual page is just called The Tapestry of Beelzebub's Tales. So you should find it through either one, I guess.
Well, thank you very much for this, Josh.
Right.
It's been willing, and hopefully all our bodies are created while we're sitting here listening and learning. So thank you very much, and thank you everybody for watching, and there'll be more shows soon. Cheers.
Bye.